Welcome to your all-active Reserve and Veterans TV series. This information education show has three goals: tell who military veterans are, share about all organizations, auxiliaries, their programs and officers at all levels, and tell about memorials in all the cities we serve in this network. The VA system, state and county officers, hospitals and state homes are also featured. Please do check out our websites. Share your program ideas and concerns via the contact information on the show. We open each month's show with a patriotic theme.
From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Welcome once again to Vets Visits on TV. This is program number 155 for February, and we're so happy that you joined us. This is my co-host.
I'm Brad Lindsay, Olmsted County Veteran Services.
And I'm Jerry Barnhart, the founder-producer of the show, and we're so happy, as I said before, that you could join us in our now 20-state network. Now, let's remind ourselves that the patriotic opening for this month was the soloist with the 154th Army Reserve Band out of Minneapolis. Now let's look at some dates in history for this month. Of course, the 3rd of this month is for Chaplains Remembrance Day, and many organizations across the nation are remembering the 4 chaplains that went down with their ship in 1943, the Dorchester, in North Atlantic waters. They gave their life vests to other veterans. Now, the 14th is Valentine's Day, and we also recognize it as National Salute to Hospitalized Veterans and those in healthcare centers as well, and we'll say more about that later. Then we have the 3rd Monday of the month is President's Day, with Lincoln's birthday the 12th and Washington's the 22nd. And the 23rd in 1945, the first flag raising on Iwo Jima, and that was at 10:20 a.m., and the second was done for a photo shoot at 2:30 on the 24th, as we said, 1945. Then finally, on the 24th of February in 1991, Desert Storm, ground assault of the Gulf War. Okay, Brad, we're ready for our first feature now.
All right, Jerry. The Veterans Administration system of hospitals, nursing homes, and state nursing homes are closely connected to VA outpatient clinics. Jerry was present for the dedication program of a new outpatient clinic recently. First, he'll talk with Dr. Mike Koopmeiners, head of the outpatient clinic system for Vision 23 out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Then we'll hear from high school teacher and veteran Congressman Tim Walz and a VA clinic doctor, Dr. Nolan.
I'm Dr. Mike Koopmeiners, the medical director for the community-based outpatient clinics at Minneapolis VA Medical Center, and I'm happy to have you all come see our new clinic and see our new facilities in Rochester, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Now, Doctor, this is the second one which has been opened here in Rochester, and what is the history? Why was a second one necessary?
Well, we basically outgrew the first one. We started out with 12 to 1,300 vets. We right now are serving 3,200 vets in the Rochester area, and we just needed a new facility to better serve those veterans. So with this facility, we've tripled our size, so we can hopefully continue to grow. But more importantly, we can also add additional services that we struggled with providing in the old building. Number one is we can have group therapies, we can have group classes, we can have education classes for people who struggle with diabetes and the like. And additionally, we also have a consultation area so that we can have specialists coming from Minneapolis. And it'll start initially with telemedicine specialty, so it'll be over the television, secure television lines.
Is this one here that...
That's right. This is one example of the large screen, and you can actually see this is another room that we would have, but we could have a specialty in that room, and they'd be talking to the vets here, just like we are doing now. This is good for people who have lung conditions and who have some cancers. It doesn't work well for people who have, for instance, rheumatoid arthritis, because they would need to actually be seen and the joints palpated. But for patients who don't need to have hands-on but needs to have testing, who needs to have their lungs listened to, we can do that all through the telemedicine equipment.
So the dedication is taking place this afternoon in August, though this will not be shown on our 20-state network for a couple of months yet.
Okay.
But what is Minneapolis is the basis for 5 major hospital locations, is it not?
Well, Vision 23, Minneapolis is the headquarters for Vision 23, and Vision 23 is basically the 5-state area. And each of the major hospitals have a group of these outpatient clinics associated with them. This clinic is one associated with Minneapolis, and it's one of about 8, and we're going to have some new ones coming on board also.
This is most fortunate. You say there are 8 so far in Minnesota. Did I get that correct?
8 associated with Minneapolis, and some of them are 4 of those are actually in western Wisconsin. But then St. Cloud and Fargo have some in northern Minnesota, and then Sioux Falls also covers the southwest part of Minnesota.
Wonderful overview. Now, can we get some specifically with your staff that's going to be here? I mentioned earlier that my first VA full-time doctor was Dr. Nolan here, and he has been fantastic for me twice a year. What is this going to do for enlarging the staff of this facility?
Well, right now we have 3 physicians. Unfortunately, one of them has chose to retire after many years of federal service. So we will be recruiting for a replacement for that particular physician. And then hopefully we'll have enough growth to actually add some additional primary care physician coverage. We have psychiatry and nurse practitioners for mental illness on board. And we also have, like I said, some of the specialties we're doing telehealth services down here. So we will recruit as the numbers grow. And right now at 3,200, 3 providers do okay. But we get close to 36, 38, which I'm hoping we're going to get to. We would have to bring on some more staff.
We're so pleased for the may I say, treatment that veterans are receiving and need to receive, especially with the new types of, well, they aren't new, mental illness because of battle scars has been since, I suppose, World War I and before. But what are the new expectations?
Well, right. The PTSD has always been around. It's got different names and different connotations, but you know, the core part of that illness has been around for some time. Like you say, going back to World War I, World War II. I think we're better prepared to help those individuals simply because of several new treatment modalities or treatment protocols that have been developed that do a very nice job of helping people accommodate to the stress that they've been through. And the VA is really on the cutting edge of taking a look at what interventions really work with these individuals and how to get them back to you know, not to make their symptoms go away, but give them back the control of their symptoms so that they can go about enjoying their life and being productive workers, productive family members, and the like. And the therapies really do work quite well for that. So, you know, I would just put a plug is for any vets out there that are really struggling, who think there's no help, there is help. Come on in. Let us work with you to see if we can help things get better.
And we hope that veterans in our other states of our network will respond accordingly with the VA system in their particular state and with their, if they have them, county veteran service officers who are the baseline of offense, so to speak.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you again.
You betcha. Thank you for coming.
Lots of thank yous to go around, but as you just heard, it's to each of you. This facility is built with the intention that this is one small part of paying back a debt that can never be repaid to our veterans who are willing to serve this nation. The people of this country have made a commitment, a moral commitment, and a financial commitment, and a national security commitment to make sure that those who serve us in uniform are going to be cared for. And this clinic coming about was because of the work each and every one of you have done. There are many in this room that have talked for many years that we have more veterans. We have more veterans of the current conflict. Some of our veterans are needing more care from previous conflicts, and we need to get a facility that's more functional for them. And it's our responsibility as elected officials and as members of the VA to respond to those needs, to make that care as accessible as possible to you. And it's a challenge in rural areas to get the care out there, but it's a challenge that we must meet. The best care in the world must be provided to our veterans. And we've seen in many cases, and many of you are testament to this, that is the case. But a lot of times it's because of distance to travel, it's because of waiting times when you get there, and it's because of lack of accessibility in the local areas that makes this more of a challenge for you. And this commitment to getting this right has to be our top priority. One of my great honors in serving you in the 1st Congressional District is I am Minnesota's only member that sits on the VA committee. And I take that responsibility incredibly seriously, and I'm proud to say that they're starting to see some things and commitments to our veterans that are unwavering. And I can tell you when it comes to the health side of things, one of the challenges we've always had is the VA is at the mercy of politics. And that means the budgets go up and they go down. And there's no one in this country that doesn't believe that balancing the budget and fiscal responsibility is a top priority, but there's also no one that believes that that responsibility should fall on the backs of veterans. That of all the programs that are out there, we can find other places to save money. We can find other places to tighten the belt. That's one that we cannot do. And something that changed this year that I think you're going to see a real difference in, the independent budget that the VFW, the DAV, the Paralyzed Veterans of America, the Legion, they all put out a budget and say, we have this many veterans, this is the care that we need to deliver to them, here's what it's going to cost, and here's how you watch to make sure all those dollars are spent wisely. For years, we never met those recommendations. Now we're meeting them, and we did something this year to take the politics out of this. Every year, Congress has to redo the budgets, and every year, they drag on. And we miss the deadline for October 1st. And when that happens, these directors, these medical personnel who are trying to provide care for you, can't make the decisions they need to make about hiring personnel, purchasing equipment, making sure that the lights are kept on in these buildings, and that is simply unacceptable. So what's going to happen this year, the VA and military construction budget is going to go through advanced appropriations. It must be done ahead of time, and it must give them consistency so that we're able to start planning for the veterans coming back, planning for the aging of our veterans, and planning to deliver that care. And this facility is one of the first visible signs that you're going to see.
Good afternoon, Dr. Nolan, and it's so good to have you on the show. And what is your position here with the VA clinic?
I'm one of the primary physicians with the Rochester Outpatient Clinic. Now that we've been moved, we've been working out of this new facility for about 2 weeks. And actually this goes into my 9th year with the VA.
And you are my first VA doctor.
That's right.
Yes, you practiced on me. No.
I did.
Yes. You've been doing a good job. I'm still going strong.
Good
now,
for you.
What is your feelings about the experience of getting into a much larger facility, and how many more patients possibly?
Actually, we have enough to be able to, when Dr. Koopmeiners talks about serving about 3,200, if we bring on a part-time provider in the future, that's probably going to be another maybe 600-700 patients. So we'll be close to 4,000 that we can easily manage here. And we have the space and the exam rooms to do it.
And it'll save a lot of travel for veterans who live all over southeastern Minnesota.
That's right.
Down into Iowa.
We have some of them.
Yes, why not?
Well, that's my home too.
Of course, of course. So this number of patients, is there another provider besides yourself at the present time?
There's actually 2 others, Dr.
Two
Tran
Okay.
and Dr. O'Grady.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. Any other observations that you would like to make, or expectations, or?
I think when people find where we're located, which I understand is something new, they're really in for a big surprise.
A pleasant
When they step
surprise.
in, they'll find that our waiting area can probably accommodate nearly 3 times the number, that we have a spacious lab rather than a little cubby hole. And when they walk into that, they're going to be amazed. There's a skylight above that end and the other nurses' station, which I think is far higher than the lights that we had or the windows at the other facility. So there's a little difference in the architecture. I think it's much more expansive, and overall we have probably about 2.5 to 3 times the space here, and people will immediately see that.
And with a 4-lane county road coming right off of state highways, it's going to be very convenient for people to find their way into 55th Street North West.
That's right. And it won't compete at all when it comes to, we're not next to, we're on the opposite side from anything connected with the mall area. So conveniently away from that, which I think is good.
Super. Thank you for taking the time from, let's see, you were dishing out punch out there in
That's
the
right.
lobby, weren't you? Okay,
That's right.
we'll let you get back to that.
I'll get back to that
That's
duty.
that's a very important specialty to follow. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
again.
you.
In addition to regular VA mental health services provided at VA hospitals and clinics, the Vet Centers are a program that was established by Congress in 1979 out of the recognition that a significant number of our Vietnam-era veterans were still experiencing readjustment problems. Vet Centers are community-based and are part of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Over the years, Congress has extended eligibility to veterans who served during other periods of armed hostilities after the Vietnam era. And eventually in 1996, they extended eligibility to include our World War II and Korean combat veterans. The goal of the Vet Center program is to provide a broad range of counseling, outreach, and referral services to eligible veterans in order to help them make a satisfying post-war readjustment to civilian life. The family members of all these veterans are also eligible for Vet Center services, which makes them a bit unique within the VA system. On August 5th of 2003, the VA Secretary authorized the Vet Centers to furnish bereavement counseling services to surviving parents, spouses, children, and siblings of service members who die of any cause while on active duty, to include National Guard and reservists who were federally activated. In addition, any veteran who was sexually traumatized while serving in the military is also eligible to receive counseling services at the vet centers regardless of their gender or era of service. The Department of Veterans Affairs Vet Center program operates 232 community-based counseling centers. The vet centers are staffed by small multidisciplinary teams of dedicated providers, many of which are combat veterans themselves. Vet center staff are available toll-free during normal business hours. If you live in the eastern half of the United States, you can call 1-800-905-4675, and if you live in the western half of the United States, that number is 866-496-8838.
Okay, Brad, and that's a good overview of the Vet Center program.
Absolutely.
And this month we are emphasizing different ways in which our government and states take care of their veterans and their families.
Right, vet centers are just one more option, a little known program.
Okay. We want to look at some other programs which veterans take advantage of. We have had many of them during our 155 programs that we've done, ways that we care for veterans and their families. But now we want to look at a specialized area of care of private counseling services. They specialize in relating to veterans and families' needs, usually with a veteran working one-to-one or in small groups. We're speaking now with Steve Lansing, who's a Vietnam vet and who had a very special need. Let's hear how Steve serves through his work with a group called Empower, and we'll have information on the screen which you can copy down as well. Please watch for this contact information.
Good morning, sir, and welcome to Vets Visits on TV.
Good to be here.
And you are?
I'm Steve Lansing. A lot of things, Vietnam veteran, and now a full-time psychotherapist, mental health professional, working with people with mental health issues, chemical dependency, and other areas of challenge.
And you have an office here in Rochester in cooperation with several other persons.
Right. We're a state licensed chemical dependency program. Our agency is called Empower CTC, is in Comprehensive Treatment Center. We have about 9 counselors, depending on how you measure it, and we do a number of things, including domestic violence and anger management. We get veterans involved in that, some in chemical dependency treatment, and then regular mental health counseling and marriage counseling.
Mm-hmm. Now, you are all licensed, but now what is the actual connection here to veterans? You meet many different criteria, obviously, but now let's get down to some of the nitty-gritty.
Well, the connection for a big part is personal. When I came back from Vietnam in 1970, and a lot of people can remember, either from personal experience or from their dads or uncles, wasn't a real happy time, and there was a lot of unrest in the country, and a lot of the anger that came out of it was directed toward the veterans. And I had a personal experience flying home on an airplane and having a flight attendant, when she found out that I'd been in Vietnam, calling me a blank baby killer, spilling a drink in my lap. I went to her supervisor and she said, yeah, if it was up to me, I'd throw you out of the blank plane. And, you know, get off the plane and you got 3-year-olds throwing blood at you and swearing at you. I went off to college, and college was the same kind of thing. And so for 14 years, my wife knew, some of my closest friends knew, but other than that, I buried it for 14 years, that I was a veteran, that I'd been in Vietnam, and anything that had anything to do with that. And as people know, and I'm a mental health professional now, things don't just go away. You need to deal with them. And it took 14 years of a lot of struggle and going through with that, and then some events and some people that came into my life to get past that point. Unfortunately, a lot of veterans didn't. There's, not officially acknowledged, but more veterans have committed suicide than were killed in the Vietnam conflict. 39% were divorced within 6 months after they came back from combat, and and the numbers go on. For a long time, a lot of the homeless people that were out there were Vietnam vets that were kind of disjointed and disenfranchised, people living up in the woods, up in the Pacific Northwest, and the list goes on with folks who came home still wounded, and yet because those wounds weren't visible, because we couldn't see the emotions like you could a missing limb or missing eyes, we chose to not deal with it.
So now, how do you bring these numbers down to the present time? People that you are working with here that have been in Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Kuwait.
Well, the phrase, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And unfortunately, we seldom learn from history. And so now you've got some different characteristics. For example, the married folks, when I was in Vietnam, they'd get an R&R, they'd go to Hawaii, Hong Kong, or Australia. Their spouse would fly there, and they'd have this. Now you've got, and we had snail mail. We would write letters. Snail mail means they put a stamp on it, and I'm using one of these new terms. And or Mars radio, where once or twice you could call through a ham radio operator, and you'd talk to your spouse or mom and dad, and they'd say, "Love you, Mom," over. And that'd go on. Now we've got text messaging before we go off into battle. We've got internet. We've got video conferencing sometimes. You've got the fact you come home. And all of these, in theory, sound real good until you realize I come home for 2 weeks and home is going on while I've been gone. All that does is allow me to get distracted a little more and to struggle and see how my family's struggling and how I'm not there to help them. Or this frustration. Electronics and technology does not replace the real thing. And so you come home, it upsets the family system that seems to have finally adapted to doing things. And then you go through all of that, and then you come home for good. And, the family's moved on where you haven't. And the expectation is to just, I'm going to step back into society, step back into my family, and right where I left off, except where you left off isn't where they're at now.
The job is different, the people are different, the employers are different, and you are different.
Every February, we bring out our Valentine's Heart to remind you to care for veterans. So I hope that you will find some special way that you can look in on veterans in your area's healthcare centers, VA hospitals, maybe some veterans who are in residence in their own homes or in hospice areas. This care is very special. It does not involve the fact of getting down to the nitty-gritty of what is wrong inside the veteran, but just showing that you care by your presence, maybe doing something special. Well, we do hope that you have a very pleasant month, my friend. We're pleased that you have joined us. We've had many people who've commented personally, just offhand as I greet them in different locations about the show and that they really appreciate what we are doing. Thank you. Spread the word among your friends to watch Vets Visits on TV. Thank you for joining us for this month's show. Seen in over 350 communities for over 3,500 half-hour periods. Our websites have additional information about the show and are updated bi-monthly. To contact us, you are welcome to use one of these electronic methods. For all ground mail with questions, suggestions for future programs, you may use this address. Our IRS nonprofit status is 501c3, Information Education. The Minnesota Commissioner of VA and these state-level organizations believe in and endorse Vets Visits. Join us next time, won't you, for Vets Visits on TV.